I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who would hire a private investigator to spy on my fiancée. It sounds like something out of a bad soap opera or a late-night crime show. But when the person you love starts acting strange, when the gut feeling you've ignored for months suddenly starts screaming at you, you realize you're capable of doing things you never imagined. The day I got the results, I sat in my car outside the investigator's office, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I already knew what was inside that envelope. I knew deep down what it would confirm, but knowing and seeing are two different things. When I finally forced myself to open the envelope, my breath caught in my throat. There she was, Chloe, my fiancée, the woman I had spent years with, the woman I was supposed to marry, in the arms of another man. In one picture, she was holding his hand. In another, they were laughing together like they were sharing some private joke. And then, the final blow, a picture of them kissing in front of his apartment. My stomach twisted into knots. My heart pounded so loudly I thought I might pass out. I had suspected. I had questioned. I had hoped I was wrong. But I wasn't, and that's when I realized that everything I had built with her, everything I had believed in, was a lie. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think. I had options. I could confront her immediately. I could scream, cry, demand answers. But something inside me stopped. No. I needed a plan. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. I wasn't going to be the pathetic guy begging for the truth. I was going to make sure she never saw this coming. That night, I walked into our apartment like nothing had changed. Chloe was already home, lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up at me and smiled, as if everything was fine, as if she hadn't spent the past few months sneaking around behind my back. "Hey, babe," she said casually, stretching like a cat. "You're home late." I forced a smile. "Yeah, work ran late. You know how it is." She nodded, already disinterested. I studied her for a moment, wondering how she could act so normal. Did she feel even the slightest bit guilty? Did she ever hesitate when she kissed him, knowing she'd be coming home to me? Or was I just a placeholder? Someone convenient until something better came along? I felt the rage boiling beneath my skin, but I swallowed it down. I wasn't going to let her see it. "Not yet." "You hungry?" she asked, standing up and walking toward the kitchen. "I was thinking of ordering something." "Nah, I already ate," I lied. I couldn't eat. My stomach felt like it was twisted in knots. "Suit yourself." She shrugged and turned back to her phone, already texting someone. Probably him. The next few days were torture. Every time she left the apartment, I knew where she was going. Every time she came home late with a lazy excuse, I had to fight the urge to throw the pictures in her face. But I wasn't going to rush this. I wanted to wait for the perfect moment. Then, 3 nights later, she made a mistake. "I have to stay late at work tomorrow," she said over dinner, barely looking up from her plate. "Big project, lots of deadlines. You know how it is." I smiled, but inside I was already making my plan. "Of course," I said. "I know you're busy." "Thanks for understanding, babe." I watched as she casually picked up her phone and sent a text. She thought she was so smart, so careful. She had no idea what was coming. The next evening, I followed her. I knew she wasn't going to work. She never even looked in the direction of her office building. Instead, she drove straight to the same apartment complex from the pictures. I parked a few spaces away and watched as she got out of the car, adjusting her hair, checking her reflection in the window before walking toward the entrance. Rage burned through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I waited. 2 hours later, she walked out, laughing, fixing her lipstick. That was it. That was all I needed. I drove home, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. Tomorrow, she'd know exactly what it felt like to be blindsided. The next evening, I made sure to be home before her. I set the scene carefully. Our apartment was clean, the lights dimmed just enough to create an air of quiet tension. On the coffee table sat the manila envelope from the investigator, along with a single glass of whiskey, mine. I sat in the armchair, waiting, my fingers lightly tapping against the glass. When I heard the key turn in the lock, my heart pounded, but my expression stayed neutral. Chloe walked in, her heels clicking against the floor. She looked radiant, as always, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. But to me, she had never looked uglier. "Hey, babe," she chirped, shrugging off her coat. "Long day?" I took a slow sip of my drink. "You could say that." She paused, sensing something was off. Her eyes darted to the table, to the envelope, and then back to me. Her smile faltered. "What's that?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, and studied her face. "Why don't you open it and find out?" She hesitated, then walked over. The moment she picked up the envelope, I could see her hands tremble just slightly. She knew. She pulled out the pictures, flipping through them. The blood drained from her face. Where did you get these?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Does it matter?" I replied coldly. "You were sloppy, Chloe, and you lied to my face over and over again." She swallowed hard. It's not what it looks like." I laughed. Actually laughed. It felt so good to finally let it out. "Don't insult my intelligence," I cut her off. "I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I trusted you. And this is what you did with that trust." She tried to speak, but no words came out. She just stared at the photos, as if she could will them out of existence. "Who is he?" I asked, though I already knew. She bit her lip. "Just a guy." It didn't mean anything. I clenched my jaw. "Funny. That's exactly what I expected you to say." There was silence. "So that's it?" I finally said. "No apology? No explanation?" Her expression shifted. Panic, calculation, and then, to my complete disbelief, arrogance. "Look," she said, straightening her posture, "I get that you're upset, but be real, okay? You and I both know I'm out of your league. You should have seen this coming." I felt my blood turn to ice. "Excuse me?" She smirked, as if she had the upper hand. "You knew the kind of woman you were dating. You really thought I'd be satisfied with just you? You're safe, predictable, and honestly, a little boring." I stared at her, stunned by the sheer audacity. "So let me get this straight," I said, voice deadly calm. "You're blaming me for your infidelity?" She rolled her eyes. "God, don't be so dramatic. It's just sex. You're acting like I murdered someone." I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "You know what, Chloe?" I stood up, towering over her. "You were right about one thing. You are out of my league." Her smirk returned, thinking I was complimenting her. "But not in the way you think," I continued, my voice sharp as glass. "You're a liar, a cheater, a narcissist, and frankly, you're not worth my time." Her face darkened. "You'll regret this." "No, Chloe, you will." Without another word, I turned, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door, leaving her standing there with the proof of her betrayal in her trembling hands. It was over. But the best part? My life was just getting started. I walked out of that apartment feeling lighter than I had in months. The weight of suspicion, of doubt, of betrayal, it all lifted off my shoulders the moment I stepped outside. The night air was crisp, and for the first time in a long time, I took a deep breath and actually felt free. I didn't go back. I didn't give her another chance to manipulate me, to gaslight me into thinking this was somehow my fault. She had made her choice, and now I was making mine. I stayed with a friend for a few nights while I sorted things out. Officially moving out was easier than I expected. I didn't even need to argue with her about it. She barely tried to stop me. Instead, she acted indifferent, like losing me meant nothing. But that was fine, because I wasn't the one who lost anything. Weeks passed, and my life slowly started to rebuild itself. The pain was still there, lingering like a bruise, but it didn't control me anymore. I focused on my work, my friends, my own happiness. Then one night, my phone lit up with a notification, a message from an unknown number. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Can we talk?" It was Chloe. I stared at the message for a long time, but I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing, just indifference. I deleted the message without replying. A few days later, I ran into a mutual friend who gave me an update. Turns out, Cody, the guy she had been cheating with, had dumped her. She was struggling, realizing too late that she had thrown away something real for something meaningless. But that wasn't my problem anymore. And then came the reunion. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. Did I really want to see people from high school? Did I really care? But my friends convinced me. And looking back, I'm so damn glad they did. Because that's where I reconnected with Veronica. She was stunning, more beautiful than I remembered. But what really caught me off guard was how real she was. She wasn't just some perfect model from a magazine. She was funny, down to earth, kind. And then her friend dropped a bombshell. You know she's had a crush on you since high school, right? I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. But it wasn't. And suddenly, everything felt different. When I reached out to Veronica later, I expected maybe some casual catching up, maybe a little flirting. I didn't expect to find someone who genuinely saw me. She didn't see me as safe or predictable. She didn't see me as a placeholder. She saw me. And before I knew it, we were talking every day. Then I was on a plane to Brussels to see her. Then we were together. Then before I could even process how far I'd come, I was standing in a place I never imagined I'd be, with someone who made me feel like I was more than enough. And then, just when I thought I had closed that chapter of my life for good, Chloe popped up again. It happened by accident. I posted a picture from my trip with Veronica on my private Instagram story, forgetting that Chloe was still on the list. Her reaction was almost instant. "Who's that? Why are you playing groupie now?" I smirked at my phone before replying. "That's my girlfriend." She didn't respond right away, but I could see she was typing, then deleting, then typing again. Finally, she sent a short, bitter message. "Sure." I knew exactly what that meant, so I sent one last message before blocking her for good. "You once told me I'd never find someone like you again. You were right, because I found someone better." She read it, and that was the last time I ever heard from her. Life has a funny way of working out. I thought Chloe was my future. I thought I had lost everything when she betrayed me. But the truth, she was just a lesson. And the real happiness, that was waiting for me all along. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers lightly tapping against the edge of my coffee cup, staring at the skyline through the window. The city lights flickered like distant stars, a stark contrast to the storm that had once raged inside me. I thought about everything that had happened, everything I had survived, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, the slow, painful process of rebuilding myself from the ground up. And now, here I was. I glanced over at Veronica, who was sitting across from me, her attention buried in a book. She absent-mindedly twirled a strand of her hair, completely unaware of how much she had changed my life. She didn't have to try. Just being herself was enough. I had thought love was something that needed to be earned, that I had to prove my worth to someone who never truly valued me. But love wasn't supposed to be exhausting. It wasn't supposed to be a test. It was supposed to feel like this, peaceful, effortless, real. Then, as if fate wanted to remind me of how far I'd come, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. I already knew who it was. "I miss you." I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around my phone. It was Chloe. I imagined her sitting alone, scrolling through my profile, seeing the life I had built without her. Maybe she was realizing, too late, that she had lost something real. Maybe she had finally understood that her looks, her arrogance, her entitlement, none of that had been enough to keep someone who actually loved her. Or maybe she just didn't want to be alone. I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked the number, because some doors are meant to stay closed. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the last time she'd try to come back. People like Chloe always do. When they see you thriving without them, when they realize they can't manipulate you anymore, when they finally feel the weight of their own mistakes pressing down on them, that's when they come crawling back. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I had everything I needed. As I set my phone down, Veronica looked up, her eyes meeting mine. She smiled, a small, knowing smile, as if she could sense that something had shifted inside me. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said, meaning it more than I ever had before. "Everything's perfect. And maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning." Sometimes life has a way of bringing people back just to remind you why you left them in the first place. We chase love in all the wrong places, desperate for validation, until we realize that the people who truly value us never make us beg for it. So tell me, have you ever had someone from your past try to come back after realizing what they lost? What did you do? Did you give them another chance? Or did you close the door for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories.